Italy's economy has been doing really badly for a long time, and I want to look into it. I've talked about how other countries' economies have been doing badly and how the world economy may be facing a slowdown, but I think this is going to be the first time I'm going to talk about Italy specifically. I have this article up from Bloomberg, and it's Politics and Policy: Italy's Economic Rot is Europe's Problem Too, and I'm going to read it, of course. 2 decades of nearly non-existent growth is hurting both the country and the continent. As I am spending the week in Italy, my thoughts have naturally turned to the topic of economic growth and its benefits. One striking fact about Italy is that, over the last 20 years, growth in per capita income has been close to zero. That's not a recession, rather it's become the normal state of affairs, and so the question arises, what is economic growth good for anyway? Unfortunately, a zero-growth environment cannot be stable forever. The reasons are many. Structures ossify, firms and governments become less productive and dynamic, rules become more vulnerable to gaming and rent-seeking, and interest groups increase their ability to seize parts of the pie. If the pie doesn't grow, eventually it becomes harder to sustain productive activity and a healthy politics. Aging is another reason economic growth is necessary. As nations grow older, they will have fewer workers and more retirees. And of course, many countries, including Italy, have expensive pension systems. Someone has to pay the bill, and without innovation and economic growth, taxes will have to rise. That in turn discourages work, pushing people into untaxed black market activity, necessitating higher tax rates, and the vicious cycle starts again. This is hardly a hypothetical scenario for Italy, which has one of the lowest birth rates in Europe and has long had a large informal economy. The country also has a debt-to-GDP ratio of 132%, and is pushing up against EU limits on its budget deficit. Economic growth is also needed to handle change. Population pressures will increasingly bring more and more migrants from Africa and Northern Africa to Europe. Italy, of course, is a natural landing point and already has received new arrivals. What should Italy do? Take them all in and help them assimilate? Erect new barriers to keep them out? Pay other countries to harbor refugees? Try and get the EU to open the Dublin Agreement so more arrivals into Italy will be taken care of by other nations? No matter what combination of answers you favor, it will cost money, which is to say, it will require economic growth. Decay is another problem faced by Italy, including decay of its natural and cultural heritage. Yeah, that's your biggest problem there. Venice, a wonder of mankind, and also a big moneymaker as a tourist destination, is threatened by rising water levels. The Roman Colosseum is endangered by traffic fumes and exhaust. Solving these problems requires extra money. As it stands, Italy has some of the worst maintained heritage in Western world. And further decay could cut into Italy's tourist income, producing another dangerous downward spiral. Sadly, it wasn't that long ago that Italy was hailed as a growth miracle. Until the 80s, its post-war performance was one of the very best in the world, for a while surpassing the UK in per capita income. Since then, something has gone wrong. Well, just use exports and catch-up growth to grow during the 80s, and that simply ran its course, but let's see what they have to say. The possible culprit includes strong competition from Chinese firms. Well, yeah, because they specialize not on the top-tier high-end goods, but in medium-level consumer durables, like washing machines, appliances, maybe some cars, and their economy was based on exports, so as China developed, it would compete with Italy's goods first and drive them out of business first. And the problem with basing your economic growth on exports is that Sooner or later, eventually, a competitor with lower wages is going to come along, develop, and compete you out of business, and then you're going to be left with nothing. Let's get back to what they're saying. Excess bureaucratization, too much political turnover, some bad leaders, too many people employed by Italian municipal governments in low productivity jobs, and growing regional disparities. Italy also specialized in a mid-sized family firm at a time when large global behemoths were on the rise. The euro and the 2011 euro crisis, which hit the country with punishing deflationary pressures, didn't help any. Some speculate that the fine quality of life in Italy, at least for many elites, contributed to the complacency and lack of will to solve those and other problems. The latest development is the possible collapse of the current ruling coalition, and the prospect that, after the next election, Italy will be ruled by one of the most populist governments in Europe. Will that be a change? Regardless of your political views, it's hard to argue that the Italian politics is moving toward a pragmatic problem-solving approach. Blaming immigrants in the EU is unlikely to resolve Italy's core dilemmas. The best way to push Italy's electoral rhetoric closer to the center may be a dose of sustained economic growth. Well, if the right-wing coalition is in power and Italy does get growth, then wouldn't that coalition get credited with the benefits of the growth and so help them? I mean, economic growth might have helped the centrist parties if they could have got it a year ago when they were still in power and could have gotten the credit for it. But at this point, they're out of power, so economic growth won't do them any more good. I think this guy's logic is a little backwards. Whatever. Anyway, slow or non-existent economic growth may be tolerable when the surrounding world is fairly static, but when challenges increase, zero growth is a less feasible option. It's difficult to pay all the bills, pay off debts, and address new problems without additional resources to deploy. Throughout history, from the Roman Empire to the Renaissance and beyond, few places have done more to boost global economic growth than Italy. Italians today are undoubtedly aware of their proud heritage, and so should be most Europeans. If Europe is to remain prosperous and well-governed, it will need a flourishing Italy. Well, okay. Well, they don't so much offer any solutions to the problem. I mean, these articles always just state, like, what kind of problems you have, but then they never offer any solutions. And when they do offer solutions, they're, like, impractical or politically impossible to implement. Though, I mean, it's not their job to solve Europe's economy, it's, like, the economy ministers and the governments of the country's job. Though, we'll see how good a job they do at it. Please share this video with anyone you think might be interested. Like the video, leave your thoughts in the comments, subscribe, and hit the notification bell.